If you've been following the channel, you'd see that a lot has been said about various firearms, from historical giants to modern day heroes. However, today we'll be talking about something different. Used in the two world wars, the Korean and the Vietnam Wars, the .30-06 caliber is an icon of strength, reliability, and versatility. However, this cartridge has faced a lot of criticisms over the years. For some, it hurt to see a legendary cartridge designed for war currently known for hunting. Welcome back to the channel, and before we get this video underway, if you believe that the .30-06 is obsolete, outdated, or powerless, newsflash, you've been lied to. Brace up guys, because in this video we'll be exploring the .30-06 in great detail, plus you may need to trash all you've ever heard about it before now. So let's roll. The .30-06 Springfield is a cartridge bred for war but found its niche in the hunting fields around the world. It's been declared both washed up and timeless, pronounced dead, and hailed as immortal. But one thing is for certain, the .30-06 still works. The .30-06 Springfield cartridge was introduced to the United States Army in 1906 and later standardized, and it remained in military use until the late 1970s. Like every new innovation, it replaced the .30-03 Springfield, 6mm Lee Navy, and .30-40 Krag cartridges. It remained the U.S. Army's primary rifle and machine gun cartridge for nearly 50 years before being replaced by the 7.62 by 51mm NATO and 5.56 by 45mm NATO, both of which remain in current U.S. and NATO service today. Despite its retirement from military service, the cartridge remains a very popular sporting round, with ammunition produced by all major manufacturers. This cartridge came to be as a result of the response to many European militaries adopting lighter weight, high-velocity service rounds with Spitzer bullets in the 20th century. The US military developed a new lighter cartridge in 1906, the .30-06 Springfield, also called cartridge ball, caliber 30, model of 1906, or just M1906. The .30-06 Springfield is over 100 years old, and by rights, any cartridge that old should now be an antiquated, outdated, backshelf history lesson. Instead, it remains the #1 best-selling big game cartridge listed in the catalog of every major ammo maker. The .30-06 was so far ahead of its time that it may not have yet peaked. If the perfect storm was a convergence of extremely rare elements forming together against all odds, then the .30-06 is truly the perfect cartridge. The .30-06 Springfield served well through 2 world wars, and its military record is distinguished and above reproach. But for the past half-century, this cartridge now earns its stripes primarily in the hunting fields, and so far we could easily hunt any mammal in North America and most of the world with the .30-06 Springfield with little compromise. The .30-06's sporting life began in 1905 when Winchester chambered its 1895 lever action in .30-03. That primed the interest of civilian shooters, so Winchester followed with the .30-06 in 1908. The 1895 is believed to be the first sporting rifle chambered for the .30-06. At the time, lever actions with tubular magazines ruled the hunting world. The box magazine 1895 lever action rifle could handle the newfangled pointed bullets, and when chambered for the high-velocity .30-06, it attained a performance level never before imagined from a lever action. It went on to get the attention of a lot of hunters, including Theodore Roosevelt. With the arrival of the Springfield rifle and the .30-06 cartridge, the lever action dominance was soon to falter. The future, as we know now, was bolt-action rifles and bottleneck cartridges. And just like that, the market responded, with Remington leading the charge with its Model 30 bolt-action rifle in 1921. Winchester followed in 1925 with the Model 54 bolt-action. It was similar to the Mauser 98 and the M1903 Springfield, and it was chambered in .30-06, as well as a sassy new youngster called the .270 Winchester. Savage was not about to be left out in this race, and in 1928 it introduced the Model 40 and Model 45 bolt actions in .30-06. By then, it was becoming clear that any company wanting to stay in business had better produce a .30-06. How flat will the .30-06 shoot compared to other cartridges? The 30-06 is a highly effective game-killing cartridge. Its strengths lie in the availability of a wide range of bullet weights and styles, combined with good velocities, making the 30-06 extremely versatile. Now, you may have been told that the 30-06 is versatile for a do-it-all load, but that's not true. When using the 30-06, it's important to match bullet weights and styles to the job at hand. The conclusion that the 30-06 is versatile or emphatic with one do-it-all load needs to stop. The 30-06, if anything, is far from outdated, obsolete, powerless, and inaccurate for hunting. It's actually the complete opposite. When it comes to cartridge comparisons, the 308 versus the 30-06 is one worth exploring. It also has a comparison deeply influenced by emotion because many hunters grew up with grandfathers and fathers who trusted the 30-06, mine included. It was the cartridge that helped many come home from war. It saved their lives. The 30-06 has been praised to the point that it is now an icon, and those who question its greatness are considered heretics. Now, at the same time, the 308 Winchester has a solid connection to post-Korean War veterans and a well-established reputation in precision rifles. Looking for a shorter cartridge with similar ballistics to the 30-06, the US military developed the 308 Winchester in the early 1950s. With the advancement in modern propellants of that time, the 308, or 7.62 by 51mm NATO as it is often called, allowed for near 30-06 performance out of individual and crew-served weapons that were shorter and lighter. The 308 and the M14 replaced the 30-06 and the M1 Garand as America's military service rifle. Since then, the cartridge has served our troops in various machine guns, the SR-25 semi-automatic rifle, as well as in various bolt-action sniper-type rifles. The 308 Winchester also became very popular for big game hunting. The primary physical difference between the 30-06 and the 308 is the size of the cartridge case. The 30-06 case is 2.494 inches long and the 308 case is 2.015 inches long. Like with the 30-06, one of the best ballistically performing factory loads for the 308 Winchester is the Hornady Precision Hunter. It will launch a 178 grain bullet to about 2600 FPS. With a 200-yard zero, this bullet will fall 50.2 inches below the line of sight at 500 yards while retaining 1,346 foot-pounds of energy. Even though the 30-06 case is about 24% longer than the 308 case, from an external ballistic standpoint, it only offers about a 6% increase in velocity. Now, in terms of performance, the best tool we have is external ballistics. Given bullets of the same weight, such as the Hornady Precision Hunter load, the 30-06 will hit about 14% harder and shoot about 14% flatter. However, this advantage in energy on target and a flatter trajectory is offset by more recoil. Out of an 8-pound rifle, the 30-06 will, on average, recoil about 14% harder than the 308. This may or may not matter to the shooter, but around 20 foot-pounds of recoil, which is common for the 308 Winchester, has been found to be about the upper level of comfort for many shooters during sustained fire. Some will argue that in the 30-06 versus 308 discussion, the fact that the 30-06 will work better with heavier bullets, like those weighing 220 grains, must be considered. Back in the day of poorly constructed bullets, that did give the 30-06 an advantage because the slower 220 grain bullets would hold together better and penetrate deeper. Now, however, with bonded and monometal bullets, the heavier 220 grain 30-06 bullet will perform no better than a 168 grain bullet from a 308 Winchester or 30-06. In fact, at 300 yards, a 168 grain Barnes TSX bullet fired from a 308 Winchester will perform as much as 15% better in terms of velocity, energy, and trajectory than will most 220 grain bullets fired from a 30-06. Yes, given the same bullet, the 30-06 will shoot harder and the bullet will fly flatter than if it were fired from a 308. However, the difference is so minuscule that inside 250 yards or so, it is indistinguishable from a terminal performance perspective. On the other hand, if you're shooting at extreme distances, you can reach a distance where the 30-06 does have an advantage. The 6.5 Creedmoor versus 30-06 Springfield comparison is also interesting as these cartridges were created over 100 years apart. They're often used for identical purposes, although one clearly outperforms the other in specific situations. The 6.5, in other words, is like the know-it-all nephew, while the 30-06 is his grumpy old uncle. If you've ever been to a family gathering, you know that those two won't leave Thanksgiving dinner seeing eye to eye ever in your life. Ballistically speaking, these two cartridges are in different categories. The 30-06 shoots heavier bullets than the 6.5 Creedmoor, but those bullets travel just as fast. This allows it to hit harder at virtually any range. To compare apples to apples, the 6.5 Creedmoor launches a 120-grain bullet 2,875 feet per second, or FPS, at the muzzle for an energy output of 2,202 foot-pounds. The 30-06, on the other hand, launches a 165-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second at the muzzle for an energy output about 30% higher, 2,872 foot-pounds. The old guy is in the lead, but the young buck is about to make up some ground. The 30-06 hits harder, but that ballistic advantage comes at a cost, namely the structural integrity of your shoulder. Anyone who has shot both cartridges knows that the 30-06 kicks harder than the 6.5 Creedmoor. How much harder depends on a host of factors, including the rifle weight, bullet weight, and powder charge. You could find a sissy 30-06 that feels like shooting a 6.5, or you could shoot a Creedmoor in a featherweight gun that feels closer to a 30-06. The 6.5 Creedmoor has been edged out in every caliber battle so far. It doesn't fly terribly fast or hit terribly hard, which means it's a little underpowered for large game, though it has successfully been used on pretty much everything in North America. But there's a reason it's an uber popular cartridge. It doesn't take an Abrams tank to take down a whitetail or an elk, and most hunters would rather have a cartridge that's easy to shoot than a cartridge that is theoretically better at dropping a grizzly bear. Power is great, but so is comfort. The 6.5 balances those two better than many other cartridges, including, in my opinion, the 30-06. And like many true and worthy kings, the 30-06 Springfield first proved itself on the battlefield, then later won the hearts and minds of the masses, including myself. Considering just the commercial offspring of the 30-06 Springfield, which includes the 25-06 Remington, 270 Winchester, 280 Remington, 3 38-06 A-square, and 35 Wellen, and the following they have, there's no doubting the genius of the 30-06 design. Fads may come and go in the shooting world, but I have no doubt that the 30-06 Springfield will be with us in another century, still making hunters smile for their photos. And that's it, we've come to the end of the video. Now you know that the 30-06 is a master in the caliber world, and it is still going strong today. But compared to the 308 and 6.5, what do you think? Does it still live up to expectations? Because I'd like to know in the comments section below. If you found this video useful, please like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting videos. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.